You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 95. Stay tuned. Hey, I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned it last week during the episode when I was talking about the reviews and that you guys can email me, but you can also, there's a new way that you guys can contact me. And that is if you watch or listen through Spotify. Spotify has just opened up the option for y'all to make comments on each, like on the individual episodes. And I can actually, like the podcast hosts can actually respond, which was a frustration of mine in the past where people would comment on any of the questions I might have posed for each of the episodes. And I couldn't respond. And now I feel like it just opens up that opportunity and that line of communication between us. So if you do have anything that you want to share, whether it's about the episode or whatever, you can do that. Of course, Facebook Live, noon on Fridays. If you haven't joined the private Facebook group, it's free. But yeah. And so that's it. So I'm going to get on to the episode. Hey guys, I'm getting myself all situated here. So today we're going to be talking about the stories that we tell ourselves and the meaning that we're assigning to those stories. How they're fucking us. They're fucking you, basically. How they're screwing with your ability to create happiness in your life. This came up initially on Friday during the Facebook Live because we're talking about last week's episode and we had a little Q&A afterwards, and it got into, was talking with one of the moms, was asking some questions, and without sharing all of the information, she was having difficulty with how she was interpreting her daughter's willingness to see her and reach out. In her mind, in the mom's mind, she was being taken advantage of. Like, my daughter only reaches out if she knows that I'm going to take her shopping. And so mom had a story, and we all do this, myself included, with even just the everyday things, that it shouldn't be this way. Daughters shouldn't reach out to their moms when they want something. They shouldn't treat their moms like a resource, was her words. And I was explaining to her that that story of hers, that it shouldn't be like this, was screwing with her. It was actually causing her more unhappiness on top of not being able to see her daughter. I had another client today who was talking about her elderly mom. This is just more of a trivial story, but as you know, I like these because I think that they are applicable in so many different areas, right? But so she has an elderly mom who is progressively worse with time, being ready. My client has a story about how mom is supposed to behave. Mom should be ready by the time that I get down there so that we can go out. The whole purpose for the visit is to get mom out of the house. But what I was trying to help my client see is that maybe the purpose doesn't always have to be about getting her out of the house. Doesn't mean that you don't go out, right? You get there at some point. But maybe each time she schedules to go down and see her mom, she schedules in the extra hour. And then when she's there, she's not spending an hour hemming and hawing and trying to manipulate and push and nudge and pester her mom into being ready. Mom, if you would have just put your toothbrush back where it's supposed to go. Mom, if you would just start getting dressed the second that I call you before I leave. Basically, in essence, my client is trying to change her mother's behavior. And it's never going to work. This has been going on for years. Her mom is her mom. If she wants to let go of the story that she has about when she should be ready, if she should be ready, then she might actually find joy in the moments that she spends with her mom before they actually go out, right? So client was so stuck on a story about the fact that mom should be ready and she's not, and now we're not getting out to go eat and do whatever, which, by the way, when they go eat and do whatever, they're probably not even going to say anything more than they could say when they're sitting back at their house. Does that make sense? So client has all this resistance around plans that she has for her mom, who her mom should be, rather than genuinely spending time with the mom who was present for her that day, late and all. losing things and all. Usually the memory making moments are during the mundane and the slightly perturbing times. That's when the beauty comes out. That's when the joy happens, not at lunch, at the place that they choose. Usually those are a bit more forced, but it's the moments at home when you're enjoying each other as y'all are, appreciating each other for who you are. Those are the moments that count. But client was so hell bent on keeping the story that mom needs to get her shit together. She's all holding on to the story that isn't reality, right? And it's screwing her whole weekend up, really. And then it causes her to go into this whole meltdown about what it means because mom is late. And so that narrative, although it seems sort of trivial and it's not about our kids, whatever, it actually did affect the way that she saw herself as a mom as the story evolved later. That story alone was creating her state of mind moving forward, not only about every future interaction she has with her mom, but her story about who her mom is and the problem with the time that they spend together. So that next time she goes to spend time with her mom, she's going to be dreading it because she's going to know that she's going to have to hound her in order to get her to go do something on time. It's always this constant manipulation in order to get somebody to fit into the stories that we have for ourselves or the stories that we want to have happen. And it never works. And even if we do get that story to fit in that certain box, we're not going to appreciate it so much because we've spent all this time and energy trying to make it happen that it's going to not be just so perfect, right? Oh, but they didn't do it this way, or they didn't want to do it this way. I had to make them do it, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So instead, if we can just learn to appreciate what we have for what it is, like I was speaking about with the mom in the Facebook Live, right? Where she was telling herself that the way that they could be happy, she could be happy, is if she didn't feel taken advantage of by her daughter. And she could find joy if her daughter would just want to spend time with her and not use her as a commodity or as like a resource. Then things would be fine. I was explaining to her that maybe this is exactly how it's supposed to be. Maybe daughters are supposed to only want to spend time if they're going shopping, right? Clearly, in this situation with this mom and this daughter, this is how it's supposed to be because it already is. We cannot change the current reality. So I like to not argue with that and say, okay, this is exactly how it should be right now. Doesn't mean I'm not going to work to change that narrative going forward, but it starts with not resisting what already is. Now, there's a difference between wanting to create change moving forward, like inspire change in others, maybe create change in, family law. And if you're going back to court, of course, change the current order status, if you will, right? That's one thing. That's not resisting. That is you fighting for something. But when you're resisting what actually has already happened or is happening currently by pushing against it and saying it shouldn't be this way, you're not doing anything but maybe hurting yourself and maybe possibly the relationship with your child and possibly your life moving forward. It's acting in petulance, right? You're being petulant by like making the stand and no, it shouldn't be this way. And it gets nothing accomplished except for it wastes your energy. And it only makes the bad part of your reality more bad. It feels worse. So what I was telling her is like, maybe this is exactly how things are supposed to be. And maybe, just maybe, by focusing on how it's not supposed to be this way and how daughters should always want to hang out with their moms and shouldn't have to bribe them with certain things, she could be so focused on holding on to the story that she misses out on the wonderland that is right at her fingertips, like within her and in front of her, that she could be living by letting go of her limitations, her story, her meaning that she is assigned to what currently is. And she said, well, what do you mean? Like it could be good because maybe it'll be good when she realizes that she's been alienated. And I said, even that is a story. Like maybe, just maybe, it could be good and it is good right now. Maybe it is. And because you're so in the bad meaning, the limiting meaning of your story currently, you're not able to see all that is amazing right now. and the growth that you've made, the growth that she has made. Maybe there's other things that are working in your favor as a result of the alienation. And again, I am not saying that this is the only way it could go. I'm saying, why not use it all for you? I'm not saying that like alienation was supposed to happen because you were meant to learn a lesson and this will bring you to the best, but you had to learn your lesson first. I'm not saying that at all. At all. And I'm not saying that we should go fake them, right? The alienating parent. All I'm saying is it's here, it's happening. And so if you can look at this like, okay, I could make this mean that this is the end of the world and this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me and this sucks and I'm a victim and blah, blah, cry me a river. Or I can stop spending all that energy, wasting all of that energy, and I can start exploring the ways that this is going to bring me to like the superhero version of me, right? Like clearly this is here. This is the stance I take now and I've taken for some time now. Clearly this was here to grow me. So what are those ways? What are the ways that I've already grown? How am I different today than I was back then? Another client I was talking with this morning, she's living consciously now. That is like the biggest obvious difference, right? She's living consciously. She's not walking through life ricocheting off of external circumstances to determine who she is, how she's feeling, and what she's going to do next. That's amazing. She has agency over herself. She knows that she is the creator of her life, her emotions, her everything, her results moving forward. And that is something that most of us didn't have before this alienation thing came and blessed their lives. I say that obviously with a little humor behind it. The thing is there's just not a downside to seeing it as, and I know it's kind of cliche, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you, but it is true. How can you find the ways that it's happening for you? Listen, you don't have to make it the best thing that's ever happened to you ever. You could make it all neutral. You could decide to assign it no meaning whatsoever. This is actually the way that I like to do it first, right? Is you decide that anything and everything that has ever happened is just up for debate. I don't know, it's a neutral. Those are the things that have happened. How do I want to feel about it now and moving forward? And again, there are going to be times when you want to feel not happy about things, and that's okay. But then you have a choice and you have authority over your life and your emotions that you feel on the regular everyday basis. Those external stressors, those things that happen aren't controlling you. You decide, but you make it a neutral first. I was mentioning this old fable or whatever parable the other day in the Facebook group, but I couldn't remember the details of it, like the story. So I saw this back in like 2017 before I even sold the house. But then I looked it up again this morning. So there's this story. It's an old Chinese parable about the farmer and his horse. And so there was a widower, older man farmer, and his son, and they lived on this farm. One day the son didn't lock the gate properly and the horse ran away. It bolted off and was gone for some days. And the neighbors all came and they were like, "Oh, how terrible. What a bad son. He was so irresponsible. He didn't lock the gate. This is awful. Now you won't be able to farm your fields and you will go poor and you will starve. And what terrible luck." And he was like, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows? Hard to tell." A few days go by and the horse returns with more horses. The neighbors come again. They're like, "What amazing luck. This is so great. Now you will have all of these horses to help you farm your fields and everything will be great and you will eat much and you will be able to sell all your crops. And what great luck." And he said, "Good luck, bad luck. It's hard to tell." The next day, the son was on the back of one of these wild horses that their horse brought home and he got thrown from the horse and he broke his leg. And so the neighbors come over again. "Oh, how awful. Your son, broken leg. What a tragedy. Now you won't be able to use your son to help you to farm the fields. This is going to be awful. You guys are going to be starving. What terrible luck." And the widow says, "Good luck, bad luck. Hard to tell." The next day, the armies came around. They were coming to take all the men, the young men from the village, off to go fight. And because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was not taken to war. And so the neighbors come again. "Oh, what amazing luck. Now your son will be saved and he will not die in the war like the rest of these poor souls. What great joy. You've been blessed." And he said, "Good luck, bad luck. Hard to tell." Basically, the idea is assigning meaning to the events that happen in our life, however long it might be while all of these things are happening, can only add more drama into our lives. The lens that we see our life with will determine the way that we respond. If he were to take on the neighbor's points of view, this is terrible. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is awful. This means I'll go starving. Well, that's how he was going to show up. He wouldn't be able to till the fields well. He wouldn't have been able to do all the things that he would need to do in order to farm the crops and live a fruitful life. Assigning the meaning actually limits us in the possibilities that we can create for ourselves and live out for ourselves in the end. We just don't know what's happening around the corner. That some of these things we can create for ourselves, other things are dependent on other people's actions. We cannot control those. What we can control is how we decide to view and frame the events that occur in our lives. And the more that we're committed to believing that something is so terrible for us, we miss out on all the ways that it might be the best thing that ever happened to us. So we really have to become like acutely aware of all of these little stories, these micro stories that we have going on throughout our lives, throughout our days, even like what it means to have to go to the store. Damn it, I have to go to the store today. I found myself saying this the other day. I was talking about the fact that I was babysitting an extra dog this week that I didn't want to be doing. It came as a surprise and I didn't draw a proper boundary and sure, it's fine, whatever. I didn't really assert myself in the situation. And I was falling victim to the situation. Again, very trivial situation, but you can apply this to your situations of alienation and all the other everyday activities you have going on. I was making it mean that I was behind. My house was messy. I can't work when my house is a mess. I don't like it when things are unorganized and then my brain is unorganized and I won't be able to do the podcast well because I'll be thinking about the other things I need to do. I assigned all of this meaning to all of these separate little things that in my mind were domino effect on the way that I was going to show up for the rest of the week. And that was fucking me. And essentially, in the end, could have been fucking you guys too. You know what I'm saying? Because the way that I show up here for you guys can and will affect some of you at least, right? And the way that maybe the lens that you guys decide to view your life with. So it's huge. Sometimes I think that, and I'm talking about myself here, when I choose anger or when I choose to blame, oh, it's their fault. If I just would have taken on this extra dog, none of this would be happening. And I would be able to have time for myself and blah, blah, blah. I was putting myself as the victim in that moment. And I have no control over the rest of what happens if I remain in that victim spot, if I remain in that blaming spot. But the second that I realize that this is my story and not actually reality, it doesn't have to be my reality anyway. That's the second that I take my power back and I'm able to then rewrite, reframe my story from in the moment and moving forward. We can do this with our stories of our past, right? And we can also do this with our reality today. The easiest way to do this is to ask yourself, is it true? Is this really the truth? Another client said to me today, again, I have all of this weight on my shoulders. I have all of this stuff that I've put on my shoulders. And I was looking at her through the screen and I was like, I haven't seen anything there. I see some shoulders. I see some stuff behind you, but I don't see anything on your shoulders. It's as simple as asking yourself the validity, the truth about things like that. Maybe you don't have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Maybe you're just imagining it there. Maybe it's the way that you're looking at your situation that tells you that you are stuck. And I promise you this, it's physically impossible to remain stuck in your situation of alienation. It's impossible. It is impossible. You're only seeing yourself as stuck because you're looking and concentrating on the ways that you can't move. So you're hyper-focused on the east side of you, but you have yet to look north, south, and west. We see the world with our mind and not with our eyes. It's our perception always, 100% of the time. It's the story that we make up in an instant about whatever we see in front of us. Each of us do this, and we all are going to have a slightly different story about it. But even if you make meaning for whatever you see in that instant, you can decide to question it and take your power back. Is that how I want to view this? How can I view this in a way that helps me and does not hold me back or harm me? We can do this also like with our past. If we're telling ourselves that we screwed up. My client was saying today, oh, I'm just a bad decision maker. I've made bad decisions in my partners and in, other decisions. And I'm a bad decision maker. I'm like, no, that is not an actual fact. You're not a bad decision maker. That's Kim. She's a bad decision maker. She's bad decision maker, Kim. No, that is your view of you based on your mood right now and what you're focusing on. But I promise you that is not a fact about you, that you are just a bad decision maker. Maybe you have evidence to support that, but I'm sure you have other evidence to support the exact opposite of that. Go mining for the evidence that works for you, not against you. But we choose that, like I was saying before, is sometimes we choose the anger and choose to blame because it absolutely is the easiest way out for the survival brain. We just want to throw all the responsibility elsewhere. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's because of them that I'm here. But when we do that, we also, with the responsibility that we hand over, we throw away our power. But if we're able to, and I was visiting this with you guys last week a little bit too, like with our parents, but when we're able to find our own responsibility in all of these stories that we have about ourselves, then we're able to do something. So like I do always look for ways that I am wrong. Because if I am wrong, I'm able to make it right for me. But if I'm not the one that's wrong and somebody else is always wrong, then guess what? I'm fucked. Because then I'm waiting on them to actually fix the situation. But if I can find, wait a second, I created this story. I'm telling myself that this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But actually, maybe it's not the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Maybe it's working to my advantage. Maybe I can grow through this. How can I grow through this? What are my opportunities in this moment? Then all of a sudden, the worst thing that could ever happen to me is gone. It's tired. That is an old, lazy ass story. Now I have something I can do. Oh, wait, I found this, and this that I can focus on. And now that lazy, whatever story about how the world is against me, it's not needed anymore. I've got my work cut out for me here. I got stuff to do. Stuff to focus on, stuff to keep me growing and going in the direction I want to go in anyway. Holding on to the old stories, the limiting stories, is just only going to end up double screwing you. The idea of alchemy is like turning plain old metals into gold and silver and valuable metals. And they talk about story alchemy, changing your story. Carl Jung, I believe, was the first that spoke about this. He compared the psychological process of transformation to that of alchemy, and we call it story alchemy. So we change the way that we're viewing our shitty, metal stories, right? The old, crappy stories. If we can turn them into the gold stories, we all win. Now we've got this beauty in front of us and not all of this that holds us back. And it's only our perception anyway. Like the bad stories that we're holding on to aren't doing any good ever. They never really get us where we want to go. So our commitment to this is the worst thing that's ever happened. This is awful. They suck. They're terrible people. What does that cause for you? It only causes you, you're the only one, me, if I'm there, right? To feel terrible inside. And it causes our reality to reflect that. Nobody else is feeling the pain that we feel when we're concentrating on how horrible they are. They don't feel it. So why not change the story and turn that into your own personal gold? That's the best revenge, is turning what they meant for your harm into gold, into your benefit. Just don't limit yourself. Neutralize everything that happens in your life, in your mind, just like the widower, the farmer. Good luck, bad luck, it's hard to tell. I don't know yet. All the information is not in yet. In the meantime, it just is. It just is. That way, you don't add the suffering, unnecessary suffering, on top of your grief that you may be feeling because you're not spending your time with your child. It doesn't have to be bad or good. It just is. I miss my daughter terribly, but I'm not making it the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It just is. I miss her. I'm sad. I would love to have her in my life on the everyday or even just, fleeting. I'd take anything, right? And for that, I'm sad, but I'm not going to assign that whole what it all means. This must mean blah, blah, blah for me and her. No, I don't dare limit myself and limit us, limit our relationship, limit her in that way by making it mean something. That is um, the ultimate, to me, slight on her, an insult to us and our bond to try to make it mean something and define it moving forward. No, I wouldn't dare. So just neutralize everything. And just when you notice that you're doing it, just have love and compassion for yourself. Oh, it makes sense that you're doing this. You're just trying to protect yourself in the moment. I see why you're trying to assign meaning right now, because by assigning meaning, it means that we can then feel comfortable in knowing where we fit into the equation, right? We meaning you, where you fit into the equation. But maybe you don't need to know that right now. It is the brain's tendency to try to do that because socially we want to know where we file. But you don't need to know that. What you need to know is where you fit in for you and who you identify you as. That's what's important. And when you identify yourself and really trust that your opinion, your determination of that is the most important, then all the other stuff will fall in line. So you decide who you are and what you mean to the world and what value you bring to the world. Don't leave it up to other people to decide that for you. I was saying something else. Oh, I was saying that, yeah, it's so normal for our brains to do that. It's trying to protect us, but in trying to protect us, it doesn't understand that it's actually hurting us. So just have some compassion for that part of you that's trying to classify and trying to make it mean something terrible or bad or whatever. Or even on the other side of things, this is the best thing that's ever happened, because then you have all these expectations and then that thing remaining the best thing that could ever happen. And statistically, that is just probably impossible for it to remain the best thing that's ever happened, or like it's going to remain a good thing. Probably not, because other things are going to happen along the way. It's just life. Life happens. It doesn't always have to be like the bad, good, blah, blah. It's splitting, actually. If we're looking at it, it's black, white. Life isn't that way. It's twists and turns and waves and ins and outs, and it's all beautiful, even in the grief that we experience as alienated parents. Nothing remains as it is. It is all fluid. So don't do life itself and all the little experiences in it the injustice of freezing it and trying to capture and make each one of these mean something for the end of time. It's not that way. Life just is. The best that we can do is learn. Learn from noticing whatever patterns we've had in our past, looking at similarities, and reframe what we've made it all mean up until now. So if you've made it mean, like my client was saying, I'm just a bad decision maker, maybe reframe that. Maybe you don't make terrible decisions. Maybe you made the best decisions possible to get you to where you are and to where you're going ultimately, which is where you're supposed to be. Life has happened exactly how it is supposed to be. What if that is true? It has to be true because it already has happened that way. It is exactly how it's supposed to be. And I know that sucks to hear sometimes, but honestly, why we're going to try to recreate history? We can't. So everything that's happened has happened because it's exactly how it's supposed to be. Now, how you view it is all up to you. Okay. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you. Listen, I forgot to mention last week, I should take this and put this in the beginning. When I was talking about writing in and emailing and whatever, if you watch on Spotify or if you listen on Spotify, Spotify has opened up a comments place for each individual episode that you can write whatever comments you want or say anything that you want to say there. And I can also respond. So we can have a conversation right there on Spotify. So that's amazing, I think. Spotify is the first to do that. So if you like, we can connect a little bit more. And I check those all the time. And that is it. Facebook Live on Friday at noon. That's all. Okay. Y'all have a lovely, lovely, lovely day and week. Talk to you next week. Bye. Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.